With biological weapons on the rise and new viral outbreaks happening in different parts of the world every year, many people feel the threat of a zombie epidemic has never been greater. While some of these videos could be pranks, others could be the early warning signs of an otherworldly apocalypse that none of us are going to survive. Number 10. This footage was recorded roughly 5 years ago somewhere in London. During a police chase on foot, a helicopter keeps track of a suspect as they dart around the city. Despite trying to evade the law, he tries to get into somebody's car, but he gets into a struggle with the person inside and then runs away.
Team is on ground. Repeat, victim is down. Stand by for medical assistance. Suspect has left the scene. Heading north.
The footage is too grainy to tell for sure, but it looks like the person in the car may have sank their teeth into him. The suspect immediately drops to the ground and doesn't move for quite some time, then suddenly gets up and bolts away twice as fast as before.
Officer, the victim is up on his feet. Repeat, up on his feet.
He gets his hands on a nearby police officer and appears to make a meal of him before running off. The video ends afterwards and no more footage was recorded. Number 9. A YouTuber named Brian and his friend think they see something weird moving in the backyard, so they grab a camera and go to investigate. Soon, the intruder makes itself known.
Brian, tell me you see that. No, tell me you see that.
I see that.
Dude, is that Teddy?
No.
They retreat back towards the house, and their former friend Teddy follows.
Dude, that thing's getting closer. Brian, call the cops.
Whatever happens next we'll never know, because the video ends shortly afterwards. This one has a genuine feel to it, making me think it's real, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a skit. Number 8. This aerial footage was taken during some sort of late night raid, though the exact location is currently unknown. A military helicopter tracks a lone Russian soldier as he flees from a group of crazed people. Occasionally, he turns around to open fire, but to absolutely no effect. His firepower does not appear to slow them down in the slightest, as they relentlessly charge forward in a pack. If you happen to speak Russian, then please listen to this next part and tell me what they are saying. More importantly, tell me if they sound legitimately scared or just pretending. Soon, the soldier finds himself cornered, with the enemy closing in from all sides. He's out of ammo and there's no way out. You can hear the pilot retch from the site and the video ends. Number 7. A YouTuber named DJ Dangler sees two men shambling down the street and immediately begins recording what he believes could be the early stages of an outbreak.
Got a couple zombie sightings here in Rochester. That one's definitely infected.
I personally think that these could be real people, but then again, I wasn't there at the time. Let me know if you agree with DJ Dangler's assessment or not. Number 6. This video starts out with a person cautiously walking around their basement with a flashlight. I'm assuming the power went out in their home and they are now trying to get to the circuit breaker or something like that. They have a feeling that they are no longer alone, which I guess is why they started recording.
Allie? Hello?
I think I heard him say someone's name in the very beginning, something like Allie, so maybe he was looking for her. Anyway, he makes it a few more steps before something makes him freeze. A pale, ghoulish creature slowly turns around and regards him with beady eyes, and he only manages to record it for a split second before retreating hastily. If this video is real, then I don't know what this creature is, and neither does anyone else. Everything from an alien to the rake has been proposed, and some people are thinking zombies too. Maybe this creature even used to be Allie at one point. Whatever it is, it definitely sounds enraged and possibly once human. Number 5. This possible zombie sighting occurred somewhere along a busy highway in Brazil. Lying awkwardly in the back of a work vehicle is a pale woman with white eyes and a face without expression. Highway workers have a discussion as they watch her thrash around wildly. Maybe someone who speaks Portuguese can tell me what they are saying here so that we can get some clues.
Opa. Eu falei assalto, né, mano? Tá deitado no meio da pista.
Viu? Você via ali, eu parei lá, não dava pra pular.
Eu vi, eu falei, eu tava parando ali, ainda pensei que era outra ali. Pensei que era assalto.
I looked up the business name on the truck and I found out that Eco Vahas is a company in Brazil that helps drivers in distress. Their website says that they have limited mechanical and medical training for highway emergencies, which means that these are probably real responders and not just actors. I can only imagine what was going through their minds when they came upon this person who looks mostly human, yet at the same time is so far gone. Number 4. This compilation of security camera footage was supposedly recorded in June of 1998. A dark figure is clumsily walking down a long and drab hallway in shaky and uneven strides. He appears to be heading towards a shared laundry room that is perhaps in the basement of an apartment building. Meanwhile, another resident walks normally from the other direction, completely unaware of what lays ahead. This is what it looks like moments before they cross paths. What happens next is too much for YouTube, but here is the final aftermath of the encounter. The video ends shortly after. I personally am not sure if this is real or fake. According to the uploader, a copy of this footage was sent to the Centers for Disease Control in Georgia almost 10 years later, but I could find no official news story from that time period or any other evidence. Let me know if you think this is real or some sort of prank. Number 3. What you are seeing is rumored to be a zombie that was somehow captured by Marines somewhere in the Middle East. It appears to have been put in some sort of quarantine container and is now trying to break its way out. The video is obviously amazing if it's real, but I think it might be fake because at certain times the zombie looks like it's being a little too dramatic. Like here, for example, its facial expressions have a little too much emotion at times, which zombies are supposed to be lacking. Then again, these expressions could be some kind of leftover primitive instinct, or maybe even just muscle spasms. Number 2. Ross Mackenzie is a YouTuber and tour guide from Scotland. One day, one of his clients say that they saw something stirring in the local graveyard. They appeared to be genuinely frightened and not joking at all. So the next day, Ross sets out for the cemetery to check for himself. The sun is starting to set and Ross still hasn't found anything. Just when he is ready to turn around,
And what? Wait! Hi!
instead of running away, he follows it and demands to know what the thing is up to.
Hi! Hi!
The creature turns around to reveal white eyes and begins heading towards him, at which point Ross wisely retreats. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. Also, I recently created a subreddit where you can submit videos and stories for future lists. It's r/chillsnarrator and the link is in the description below. If you'd like to see more of these videos in the future, then hit that subscribe button because I upload a new video every Thursday. If English isn't the only language you speak and you're interested in getting a shout out, click more, then add translations. By translating the video, not only will more people be able to watch it, but a link to your channel will be added in the description. Number 1. 2 soldiers in Iraq enter a building to find the power is completely out. They sense something is wrong and cautiously enter. This is what one of their body cams picks up inside.
Hey man, you alright? Hey KBR? KBR? Hey, check that guy right there. Check that guy.
As the two of them venture deeper into the building, they can start to hear a rising chorus of groans and growls coming from just around the corner. What they see next is enough to make them lose their training and go into a full-blown panic.
Oh my god, what the f? Oh my god.
A soldier gets pulled into a doorway just as they round the corner. At this point, the soldiers know they are in too deep and try to run, but fear seems to have frozen their feet to the ground. The video ends before we can see their fate, but somehow we can already tell what probably happened. Sometimes the strangest things can happen to us during the most ordinary of times. Every person on this list is convinced that they have captured something paranormal using the Snapchat app. Glitch or not, their thoughts and experiences have been recorded live for our analysis. Whether you believe in them or not, demonic possessions can be classified as a strange phenomenon that has occurred in practically every culture for thousands of years. Modern technology now allows the world to document these supposed possessions in a way that history has never let us before. Take a look at these potential cases of demonic possession and let me know if you think evil spirits can take control of our own bodies against our will. Chills. Number 10. The televised possession. Did you know that a real exorcism was aired live on television in the early 1990s? ABC aired The Exorcism on their news show, 2020. It covered Gina, a 16-year-old girl living in Wellington, Florida, who had been in and out of psychiatric wards after seeing demons. It soon becomes clear early on that Gina's supposed demons aren't going out without a fight. First, the priests literally have to hold her down. They even insist that she will levitate if they let her go. The rough handling only seems to make Gina even angrier for a while. Soon she calms down long enough to briefly talk about her situation. Apparently 10 vicious demons are taking turns controlling her every day, she says. 2 of the demons she named were called Zion and Minga. Whether or not Zozo was one of the 10 was never revealed. Soon after mentioning them by name, her possession kicks into high gear.
God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit.
She looks very intimidating, especially for such a young country girl, but the raw hatred in her eyes wasn't enough to deter the priest from going through with the exorcism as planned. They recite prayers while she recites prophecies of war and destruction. One priest describes simultaneously feeling the power of God mixed with the power of evil as the supernatural forces fought each other for supremacy. After a long time, the spiritual intervention was finally over. In an interview 2 months after this episode aired, Gina describes herself as feeling much better now. The news story has never been picked up since, so who knows if Gina's change really lasted, or what has happened to her in the years since. So at first glance, this looks like it could be a real exorcism, but then again, it could be an instance of a news program taking advantage of a troubled girl and her family for ratings. There's no doubt that the priests believe Gina is possessed, and Gina herself is certainly not faking it, but there is just no way to tell if demons were really at work here, or if a group of overly religious people were being deceived by their own blind faith. Number 9. The Chosen One. As this exorcism footage goes to show, Christians aren't the only ones plagued by spiritual possessions. Here you see a supposedly possessed woman trembling under the power of group prayer, and it all begins with a single concerned-looking rabbi kneeling before her. The rabbi observes her for a bit, then he stands up and says something to the crowd. Under his orders, they surround the possessed woman and begin to chant as one. It all starts out quietly, but soon it grows louder and louder as the woman convulses before them, thrashing wildly. As the camera pans out, you can see that many rabbis have gathered here to perform this exorcism. The fact that they have so many religious leaders present indicates that whatever is inside of her must be very powerful. The religious chanting intensifies as the woman starts to cry out in pain. The rabbis continue to vigorously shake their fists at her while shouting for her demons to leave her body at once. At this point, the group exorcism appears to be working. They pause often to see if the demon has completely left her. When they see that it hasn't, they resume the shouting once more. The woman is held down and appears to still be going completely delirious. This video cuts out abruptly, so we don't know if the exorcism was successful or not, but by the end we can see that some members of the crowd are smiling in relief. Number 8. Sleep haunting. A YouTuber named Dale Pendlebury is getting terrible sleep and wants to know what is going wrong. It isn't necessarily a lack of sleep that's the problem, he thinks, but rather the quality. Even though he makes sure to get between 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, he still wakes up in the morning feeling like he has gotten no sleep at all. He needs to get to the bottom of this, so he sets up a camcorder to record himself overnight in bed. Little did he know that what he was recording was his own possession. His camera only films when it detects motion or audio, which spares Dale the trouble of fast forwarding through the slow parts. When he reviews the tape, everything starts out looking ordinary, but soon after the first night, things start to get very strange. By night 3, something is apparently throwing him around in his own bed. More strange noises happen throughout the next night, and at one point he even sits up and looks straight at the camera. There is no expression on his face at all, but it looks like his eyes are completely open. Dale drops back hard onto his bed without a word. Then, on the final night, Dale does this. It's hard to tell if this is real or fake for sure. Number 7. TJ goes insane. A YouTuber named Adam Park and his friends are pulling an all-nighter with Call of Duty when they got interrupted by some loud noises at 3 in the morning. The only other person in the house besides them is Adam's roommate TJ, and the noises are coming from his room. Adam knows that something weird is going on, so he pulls out his phone and starts recording.
Okay. What the fuck? Oh my god, what the fuck?
Yo.
Adam opens the door and peeks down the hall. This is what he hears.
TJ! What the fuck, dude? Should we call the cops? Yo, call the cops. Call the cops, bro.
Oh my god.
Alright, let's go. TJ! Dude, go in there. We gotta help him, bro. TJ!
We gotta help him, bro.
The noise sends all 4 friends running back into Adam's room. One of them calls the police, and the rest decide to do what they can to help their friend. When they bravely walk back into the hallway, however, they find that TJ is far beyond help.
T.
Yo. Yo, get the fuck out of here. Call
TJ, are you okay, dude? TJ!
Out of all of the videos on this list, I'd have to say that this one looks the easiest to fake. It wouldn't be that hard to have your friends all run around the house and then edit in some scary sound effects to make it seem like a possession. Then again, everyone does seem pretty scared in this video. Usually at least one person is a bad actor and easy to spot in fake videos. But these guys all seem very convincing. The way they keep switching from being scared to nervous seems realistic. If it is real, then I have no idea what happened after they stopped recording. Number 6, come here. Deanna Simpson lives in a notoriously haunted home in Hanover, Pennsylvania. She sees shadowy figures all of the time and has even recorded strange voices that seem to materialize out of thin air, like this one for example. If you were to hear these ghosts telling you to come closer, don't listen. They will apparently try to possess you in a second, at least according to Deanna. But if you want to know exactly how haunted this house really is, then don't just take Deanna's word for it. You should ask Katie Kairos, the Fox News reporter who was sent to cover the haunted home. One member of the film crew suddenly felt his wrist start to burn horribly. Deanna knew what had happened immediately and asked,
"Are you okay? Did you get scratched?"
He was behind the camera, but Simpson knew what had happened right away.
Oh my gosh.
He'd been scratched. Simpson says it's happened to her, her husband, and friends many times before.
Sure enough, there was, in fact, a fresh scratch on the inside of his arm. The cameraman later describes it as feeling like hot metal being pressed against his skin. Deanna says that this regularly happens to her, and to anyone else who enters the home. She says that this is a warning shot from the ghost, but it could also be a possible possession attempt as well. She also claims to have been pushed down the stairs before. As the crew films, they see orbs coming from that area. Meanwhile, Katie gets touched and pinched by unseen figures as strange lights and noises fill the home. The reporter was definitely a believer by the time she left, along with the rest of her news team. Number 5. Brandon versus Zozo. Cole and Ethan go to the mall and buy a Ouija board so they can, in their words, put down a camera and see what happens. They buy the board and go back to their friend Brandon's home to set things up. It soon becomes obvious that they are not taking the idea of a Ouija board seriously at all. The whole time they constantly make jokes about becoming possessed. This negative attitude could be why things go so wrong so quickly. Even when it's time to try and summon ghosts, they continue to treat the situation with blatant disrespect.
Can anybody hear us? My hand is getting tired.
Okay, if anybody can hear us, move the thing. Because, move it.
Can't just be so mean.
That's how you guys be nice.
Nothing happens for a while, so they take a break and come back to it later. This time they take the Ouija board a little more seriously and try to concentrate a little harder. Before they know it, the pointer is actually moving by itself. Cole and Ethan both swear that they aren't intentionally pushing it. They ask for the spirit's name and the pointer lands on the number 6 in response, but when the spirit says that this is not its real name, they repeat the question again. Instead of saying its name, the pointer moves over to a picture of the moon and then stops. This is supposed to symbolize darkness, which means that the spirit is potentially evil. At this point, Cole no longer doubts the power of the Ouija board and decides to call things off. He is too scared to continue at first, but they think about it for a while and then come to the conclusion that they have to finish what they've already started. The friends all sit down around the Ouija board and start filming again. They ask what the spirit wants, and this is the response.
I'm not moving my hands, I swear.
Alright, let go. Holy. Have you ever seen that?
No, dude.
Are you kidding me?
Alright,
Did it just
it
work?
definitely just moved by itself.
Are you kidding? Oh my gosh.
The spirit spells out the word peace and highlights the word no. No peace. Then it highlights the word goodbye, followed by the word no. No goodbye. In other words, it's saying that it's not leaving. No peace, no goodbyes, it's here to stay. By now, everyone is too scared to continue, but by now they also don't have a choice. Brandon is acting very strange at this point. He starts to move the pointer all over the board while grinning to himself. Then he starts laughing. None of his friends can even recognize him at this point. He's never looked or acted this way.
Okay, hey, that's still not funny after these. Hey.
According to them, Brandon became temporarily possessed that night and started lashing out at them. They managed to get him under control, but he has been depressed and not exactly himself after this experience ever since. As many YouTubers have pointed out, the friends never did properly end the ceremony, so maybe that's why he was able to become possessed. On the other hand, this could just be a group of friends trying to play a prank online. It's impossible to say for sure. If it is a joke, then they managed to successfully fool thousands of people. Number 4, Bob Larson. That's the name of an exorcist who travels around the country to supposedly rid people of their evil spirits. Here's just one of the many videos showing the Reverend in action.
I don't like you. Feelings mutual.
This woman claims to have been tormented by Satan ever since her sister began praying to a demon for help after their mother passed away. She alternates between speaking in tongues and using foul language at random. The way that Bob Larson performs this exorcism is almost playful at times, but soon everything becomes much more serious.
I let the spirit come out of her. Perversion, spirits of witchcraft. All of you come now.
During a different exorcism, Bob Larson encounters a demon who prefers to mock him instead of putting up any form of physical resistance. He puts his hand on the possessed woman's forehead and gives her a sharp command to leave.
So we left the curse. We left the curse. Say it! We left the curse. We lit the gates. A fire and death. We lit your death. Oh.
As the exorcism wears on, the alleged demon appears to be losing its resolve. Eventually, it succumbs and leaves the woman's body. The renewed woman hugs the Reverend while the crowd cheers on. Of course, these people could have been lying in order to get attention, or maybe they have legitimate mental disorders that make them think demons are lurking inside of them. They could even be paid actors working for Bob Larson to make him seem like a real exorcist when he is not one. On the other hand, however, they could actually be possessed. Once again, it's very hard to tell if these are true or not. Number 3. Pope Francis. Many regard this as the most clear-cut evidence for demonic possession of all time. Pope Francis is offering his blessings at St. Peter's Square in Rome. When he places hands on a man who is very troubled indeed, nobody in the crowd knew that the Pope was moments from performing a public exorcism, not even Francis himself. The person in the wheelchair is a 47-year-old Mexican father of 2 named Angel. Angel says that he has been possessed by demons as far back as 1999. So far, 10 exorcists have been unable to rid him of his demons, though they have all tried no less than 30 times. When Pope Francis lays hands on him, this is the end result. Watch closely and you'll see Angel's face twist and contort in pain, almost as if the demon is boiling under his skin. The longer the Pope lays his hands on him for, the more uncomfortable Angel becomes, and when the Pope releases him, Angel instantly slumps over and becomes tranquil. Is this an actual demonic force leaving his body, or merely the power of suggestion at play? Whatever transpired between the two of them apparently wasn't enough to end all of Angel's problems. The poor man claims he is still haunted by evil spirits. Some say that this video serves as evidence that demons and religion are not real, and that Angel is crazy instead of possessed. Others, however, insist that this is proof of just how powerful and dangerous the spirit world can be. If this is a real possession, then one thing is for sure, Angel is most likely stuck with his demons for good. After all, if the Pope himself can't get rid of them for you, is there anyone left who can? Number 2. Rule possession. This footage is supposedly from the 70s and is said to have been removed from someone's attic in Iowa. You're about to see some shocking clips from this film, but the full version is so violent and disturbing that I can't show everything. Anyway, the video begins with someone walking up to a possessed person lying in bed. This person is very gaunt and still, breathing heavily, staring straight ahead. Suddenly, a nearby door opens all by itself. We can't show you this next part, but the person appears to be ripping their fingernails off one by one while they are still hunched over. I don't mean just a hangnail either, I mean the entire nail. The man looks up at the camera and the scene abruptly ends. Apparently being in pain must make this thing very happy, because in the next scene it's sitting upright in bed, smiling and laughing demonically. The bedridden figure suddenly slashes around wildly while screaming, and then you won't believe what it does next. It slices away at its lips and neck with a razor blade until it is completely bloodied and disfigured. The scene makes up a large part of the video, but unfortunately I cannot show it here. At one point, the possessed man cuts off his lips and is staring straight at the camera, his teeth jagged and bloody. The final scene is him slicing away at its throat, and it looks like there's no way he could have made it. I really hope that this is all makeup and special effects. If so, it's very convincing and well done. Before we get to number 1, if you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. If you'd like to see more of these videos in the future, then hit that subscribe button because I upload a new scary video every Thursday. Number 1, the laughing victim. This man was shot in the face somewhere in Brazil. A hospital worker started filming this after the gunshot victim suddenly jumped up and started laughing hysterically. Possessed or not, I've never seen someone get shot and act like this before, have you?
Pai nosso que está no céu, santificado o vosso nome. Venha a nós o vosso reino. Seja feita a vossa vontade. Assim na terra como no céu. O pão nosso.
He eventually stops laughing for a second and then starts screaming in a deep voice while walking backwards. His muscles are extremely tense, and again, I've never seen anyone move like this before in my entire life.
Você não é poderoso. Você não é poderoso. Jesus, Deus está aqui. Deus é maior do que tudo. Você não é poderoso. Deus é maior.
Despite being shot in the face and losing a massive amount of blood, this man appears ready to fight anyone who gets in his way. All attempts to reason with him are met only with growls and aggressive posturing. It looks like they are holding something in front of him to keep him from attacking, possibly a walker or some other piece of medical equipment. The doctor appears to be asking for an explanation for his behavior, and his eyes grow wide with fury as he explains to them what is wrong.
Lúcifer! 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 Tá incorporado com o santo, né? Tá incorporado com o santo. Quero ver se o santo vai segurar a tua vida, isso. Quero ver. Não vai te bater não, porque Deus é...
Lucifer, he says. In that moment, he claims to be possessed by the Prince of Darkness. If anyone can translate the rest of what he says in this video, please let me know. I'd really like to understand what he's saying. If this wasn't a possession, then this man was probably high on drugs and adrenaline. Still, I've never seen someone lean that far back without falling over, especially after getting shot in the head. If he was intoxicated and injured, then he probably shouldn't be able to do that. This is another one that looks like it might actually be a legitimate possession, but again, I turn to you for an answer. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because I upload a new scary video every Thursday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy! You probably think that deer are harmless, but many of them are carrying something that is causing them to waste away like zombies. The medical community is not sure how this is being spread yet. All they know is that it creates holes in the brain, and that one day it might somehow spread to us. Number 13. A YouTuber named Piso Mojado records this zombie deer as it mindlessly spins around in circles at a public parking lot in the middle of the day. After a while, it briefly stops and has what could be considered a brief moment of clarity.
You alright there, little guy?
But then it falls over, gets up and resumes its frantic pacing. It runs in a half circle and heads towards the camera, but then it falls again and starts flailing wildly on the ground instead. The zombie deer seems dazed when it gets up a third time, like something has permanently changed in its mind. It calmly stumbles forward with a blank look in its eyes and drool falling from its mouth.
Yeah, he's foaming at the mouth.
Watching this video, it's hard to tell if this deer has CWD or rabies like the uploader claims. The two share many common symptoms such as drooling, disorientation, and aggression, so we may never know for sure. Either way, this man is lucky this deer decided to run away at the last moment instead of continuing its slow and steady charge in his direction. Number 12. This Snapchat video was taken at a school in Estherville, Iowa. You can see a deer standing outside looking very confused before it suddenly tries to get in without warning.
Watch out!
Clearly, the zombie deer wants to get inside however it can, searching around the sides of the glass for an opening before giving up and resuming its confused vegetative state. Those inside are lucky that this deer is too small to break the glass. If this was a full-grown deer running at them, things could have been much different. Hopefully, they contacted animal control and thoroughly disinfected this door before letting anyone touch it. Number 11. A Facebook user sees this mutant deer outside of his house in the middle of the night and immediately begins recording. The deer is covered in strange growths and appears to have lost all fear of humans. One of his friends gets close and tries to feed the deer by hand, which I think is a bad idea because CWD could possibly be spread through saliva for all we know. The deer appears to be curious and actually considers eating from his hand before deciding to feast on the grass instead. Grass is not its preferred food choice, so I think this deer might be covered in growths and starving, but not necessarily has CWD. I've also never seen a deer with CWD eat before. That still doesn't explain why it comes alarmingly close to both of them though. though, so maybe this deer does have CWD after all. Number 10. A mother deer aimlessly walks in circles while its young grazes nearby. You can tell that one of her fawns senses that something is deeply wrong with its mother at the 1 minute 23 second mark, but it can't tell exactly what the problem is. Judging from the deer's high steps in low grass, it seems to have some sort of neurological problem, most likely CWD. According to the uploader, the mother deer wandered over to a nearby creek and fell into the water. She was unable to lift her neck out of the shallow water and passed away. They have been leaving some corn for the fawn to survive on. Hopefully they do not get CWD as well. Number 9. This old VHS video marks one of the earliest documented cases of CWD amongst the deer population. Notice how these signs could easily be mistaken for rabies or something similar.
They were staggering and drooling. They showed signs of extreme thirst. Their ears drooped and their coats were rough.
This deer appears to be in the late stages of CWD, at which point it becomes too incapacitated to walk in circles. Instead, they stand with their legs spread very far apart and stare without blinking. This poor animal appears to be completely vacant and not panicking like many of the others on this list. It's the end of a long journey. Its brain is likely too far gone to feel any discomfort at all. Number 8. Steve Beltran sees an infected deer on his street and begins recording this brief 10-second video as proof. The poor deer looks to be in a total panic as it spins in place, completely oblivious to Steve and his camera. Maybe it's just me, but Steve seems to be standing way too close here. The zombie deer could accidentally stumble over and fall on him. All I'm saying is I definitely wouldn't want to come into close physical contact with anything that's been infected, especially with CWD. Number 7. A YouTuber named JawGuy7 is hanging out at a creek when a mangy lone deer comes wandering up to them. I can't tell for sure, but I think it makes two strange noises that I have never heard come from a deer before. The deer calmly walks past them without any fear and goes to the river but does not drink. Eventually it turns towards them and gives him a cold blank stare. There seems to be no life or thought behind its eyes as it holds him in its gaze. Long strands of drool hang from its lips, indicating possible CWD. Obviously this creature is thirsty, but at the same time it lacks the cognitive facilities needed to take a drink. CWD has left it just smart enough to find a water source, yet far too gone to quench its thirst. Hopefully this was reported to Animal Wildlife Control so they could help the deer. Number 6. This deer is being tested for CWD by the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. Researchers take tissue and fluid samples, including removing its tonsils. By the end of it all, they are practically drenched in potentially hazardous materials. Their goal is to measure the effects of CWD within the deer population, but some commenters believe these researchers are going to be the first ones to get contaminated themselves. Here you can see them taking a sample without wearing gloves, and their hands are stained in red. I do think they should at least use gloves, but then again, these are trained professionals, and I guess they are not required to do so by law. I don't see any cuts on their hands, so I guess they could be fine. Theoretically speaking at least. Still, considering we don't know how CWD is spread, it seems like a big gamble to take. Let me know if you think this could be a problem or not for the speed of invasive cognitions. Number 5. This young fawn has contracted an illness that is most likely CWD. It alters between standing paralyzed in place and spinning in circles, its neck rotating wildly all the while. At times it looks like its neck is going to snap, like here for instance. Maybe it is even trying to put itself out of its own misery. One thing that's strange is that this deer seems to prefer standing in areas with sunlight. Whether or not this sunlight-seeking behavior is based on instinct or actually provides some sense of relief is hard to tell for sure. Number 4. This strange deer keeps repeatedly wandering into the yard of a YouTuber named Free Tickies. It seems to be without a herd, so at first Free Tickies suspects that it could be someone's pet, which is not all that uncommon of an occurrence where he lives in Kentucky. After a minute or so, it becomes evident that this deer is sick with something quite serious. Watch here and you'll see how the deer looks disoriented enough to walk up to another neighbor's house. I have little doubt that it would have wandered straight through the front door if it was open, potentially contaminating the entire inside. The YouTuber says that he called the local wildlife authorities and reported the deer shortly after recording this 2-minute video. I think he keeps a respectful distance for the most part and appears to be safe from any potential contamination. As for the deer, it sadly had to be put down by government officials after it kept walking onto the nearby Route 8 highway. Number 3. This deer looks like it could be fine, except it's walking in circles with its tongue hanging out without a clue of its surroundings. A telltale sign of CWD. The person recording thinks this could be the work of hunters, but I disagree. Watch this part and tell me what you really think happened.
Oh yeah, he might have got shot.
The deer circles in place for well over a minute and then silently walks out to a nearby field. The way it is walking here makes me think that this is the result of something to do with the brain. The animal is so out of it that it looks ready to walk through the front door of a nearby home. Perhaps this exact scenario is precisely how it will one day spread to humans. I really hope this incident was reported to the proper wildlife agency for further investigation. Number 2. This Michigan research station keeps track of the local deer population. The only way to check for CWD is to look at the brain, so this means
in most cases, the head will then be collected, tagged, and sent to the disease lab, where they will be tested for CWD.
Basically, there are buildings full of frozen deer heads sitting on display waiting to be tested. Notice how the workers are not fully covered from head to toe biohazard gear. I'm not an expert on CWD by any means, but I would feel a lot better about the situation if they were wearing gear that covers their entire head. Seeing all that exposed skin while working around potentially infected deer heads seems like the perfect opportunity for it to spread to humans. Let me know if you agree, or am I just overreacting? Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life, then go to my Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT and tap that follow button to find out. My new music video Stranger was recently released. Could I get your honest opinion on whether it's good or bad? Tap the circle icon in the top right corner. Then tap my music video to watch it. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way you'll be notified of the new videos I upload every Thursday and Saturday. Number 1. This deer appears to have a massive growth that has taken over the entire right side of its head. I was thinking that this could possibly even be exposed brain, but I doubt it would still be alive if that were truly the case. Either way, the deer appears to be very much alert and not in a vegetative state, which suggests that this is just a growth. But then again, maybe it's going through the early stages of CWD and still has some brain function. The quiet wild animal seems to be completely unafraid of the camera and makes no attempts to get away. Based on its lack of a reaction, I would say this specimen is halfway through becoming an actual zombie deer. These leaked videos keep surfacing all over the internet, despite allegations of repeated attempts of keeping their stories hidden. Let's analyze these videos together and sort out the rumors from the facts.